Several of Donald Trump's rivals took to the debate stage Wednesday to make their case for the Oval Office, oftentimes devolving into shouting matches. The former president was notably absent, but came up several times during the debate, and our senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe has analysis.
And there's something dangerous happening in America now.
President Biden today claimed threats to democracy will continue as long as former President Donald Trump dominates the Republican Party.
There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy, the MAGA movement.
Speaking in the key swing state of Arizona, the president slammed his potential opponent for rhetoric that could lead to violence.
Attacking the free press as the enemy of the people.
And he said more in the GOP should have denounced Trump after he accused retiring Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley of treason and implied the general deserved to be killed.
And although I don't believe even a majority of Republicans think that, the silence is deafening.
But Trump, too, has been focusing his attacks on Mr. Biden.
Joe Biden is the most corrupt president and most incompetent president we've ever had.
The former president stumped with auto workers in Michigan Wednesday night, skipping the second Republican debate and mocking his challengers from afar.
Does anybody see any VP in the group? I don't think so.
And Ed O'Keefe joins me now from Tempe, Arizona. Ed, we saw a lot of candidates step up their attacks on former President Donald Trump during the debate. Was any of that effective in any way that we could possibly measure this early?
That's a good question, John. You would think they'd spend more time drawing contrast with the former president since he wasn't there. Turns out they only spent the equivalent of just a handful of minutes doing so over the course of the 2 hours. There was much more shouting and things like that than there was trying to draw contrast with the frontrunner. You know, for someone like Ron DeSantis, who's sitting there somewhat comfortably in second place, the idea was do no harm. For someone like Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, they need a little more electricity in these moments to generate buzz, interest, excitement, donations, and people turning out to see them out on the road. So we'll see if it helps them and if others on that stage fade. I think the one to watch most especially would be the former Vice President Mike Pence, who perhaps didn't deliver a stronger performance last night as some of his folks would have hoped.
Ed, a lot of Republicans are saying there were too many people on that stage, and now Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, not on that stage, is getting attention from some Republican donors, which is to say adding him into the mix. What's going on there?
Well, first of all, big money donors, as you know, John, have an outsized influence on this process because they can write big checks either to a super PAC or to campaigns and get one of their guys in the mix. And there are a few of those in this race already. The former Carlisle executive who now runs Virginia is certainly another. And he has managed to tell a lot of people who write big checks to Republican politicians, hold your money, please, because we have big state legislative elections in November in my state. I'd like to win those and get a big majority to pass a more conservative agenda and possibly run for president as well. The problem, though, is he could miss some key filing deadlines in the next few weeks that are before Virginia's elections, robbing him potentially of several dozen delegates he might need in a tight race. That and the fact that he hasn't been running, hasn't been in Iowa or New Hampshire, could cause trouble. But what this reflects more than anything is a lot of those big money guys say, what we're seeing on stage isn't cutting it. We need somebody else to try to take on the former president and then get to the current president.
Right. A lot of those people who write those big checks have imaginary views about the magical properties of late entering candidates. But if Youngkin were to join the race, what would he need to do to qualify for the next debate, which would be a centerpiece moment?
He'd have to get into essentially the top 4 in Iowa and or New Hampshire or in some kind of national survey very quickly. And he'd have to quickly come up with donations from at least 60,000 Republicans, I believe, for the next debate. Maybe 6 or 7 big money guys is one thing, but demonstrating that grassroots support, which is why the party is requiring candidates to demonstrate they can raise from that many people, might be trickier for someone who's just getting in and hoping to make that stage. So we'll see. Again, the mechanics of this are really difficult, and it's why these things start so early, because you're essentially building Fortune 100 companies very quickly from scratch. And it could be too insurmountable a challenge for him this time. If not now, there's always 2028.
And when he arrives, if he were to ever arrive on that debate stage, he would get the attention of pretty much every opponent on it, which would make it a rough first go.
Yeah.
Ed O'Keefe, thanks a lot for being with us.